scientific level. We're looking at things at the quantum level, basically at the most finite parts of it. And the interesting thing about the quantum is that it doesn't really behave like the rest of reality. And I believe that that's metaphorical to spiritual because things in the spirit don't necessarily behave as we think they should in reality. And so I want to get right to what I want to talk about, and that is nuclear force. And there are two types of nuclear force. One is what they call the strong nuclear force, and this is the thing that binds protons and neutrons together in the nucleus of an atom. And then there's the weak nuclear force, which is basically how radioactive decay happens. And it's really important to understand these two because basically the strong nuclear force is generally what is seen in nuclear fusion, which is the same process that happens in stars like our sun. And so this strong nuclear force is the property by which energy is created. Now, there is also energy that comes from the weak nuclear force, and that is radioactive decay, which is what you would detect in a Geiger counter. A Geiger counter basically detects the number of well, it actually detects the decay, but what it's doing is it's detecting how protons are being changed in their quark state, which is the component that protons and neutrons are made of. They're up quarks and down quarks, and there are several other quarks, and we'll get to that in another broadcast. But when this when a proton changes to a neutron because a quark state changes, that's when you get radioactive decay. And so there is also energy that's emitted from that, but it's not as powerful as the energy that's released from the strong nuclear force. Because the other thing too is that you got to think is that the strong nuclear force is what keeps the nuclei of atoms together, and because of that, that allows things to be real. In other words, that something atomic manifests in a perceivable state, like whether it's solid, whether it's liquid, whether it's gaseous. Okay, so those are the field or the forces, the nuclear forces that we're dealing with, and this is really critical to spirituality. When I saw this, this just really kind of blew my mind, and it's this: that when you have a strong nuclear force, there's energy that's created. And then also, there is a more tangible reality that's manifest. In other words, it is the strong nuclear force coupled with the vibration or the frequency of things that actually give things a perceivable state in our understanding of reality. Whereas the weak nuclear force is basically simply a change, or it's a flipping of the state of an atomic particle that releases some energy. Now, what I found is that, you know, people change. People change. They toggle their state. And that state can change depending on circumstances, depending on situations. And that's why I've talked in the past about not really getting hung up on where people are right now, because if you're looking at them in the quantum state, they're subject to change based on observation. In other words, I see someone one way and you may see the very same person at the very same time in a different light. You know, there are all kinds of different psychological uh, illusions that are used to basically test our perceptions. But basically, perception alters reality. It doesn't just perceive or induct reality, but it also alters it by observation. So people change, and that change emits some energy. Now, when people are in a constant state of flux, changing constantly, then you'll see this decay that happens, a decay of relationships, a decay of consistency, a decay of intellectual capacity. All of these things, they happen because basically you're constantly flipping states, and this flipping of the states causes a decay. But there is a detectable energy that comes from that, and I like to say, for the sake of this discussion, that that is negative energy. Now, people are going to change. People do, and that's cool. Uh, the problem happens is that when you have a chain reaction, if you will, of flipping states, then you have a constant decay. And this is also the process by which nuclear fission happens, or the splitting of an atom. So this decay, it gives off an energy, it can be detected, it can actually be useful, it can be harnessed properly, just like anything else, but it's a negative energy. Now, the positive or the strong nuclear force, on the other hand, is the thing that holds things together. And I like to think of it that in the sense of quantum humanity, that it's the force that holds humanity together. If I could be so bold, I believe that basically love is the field in which all matter exists. It is the field in which a particle or a wave manifests itself. But I also believe that the field gives something to atomic structure that allows it to behave a certain way. And I believe that the thing that holds everything together, as well as the thing that all things manifest in, is love. So I think that the strong nuclear force is equivalent to the actual field itself. And that's why I believe that things are able to be held together. And this is the thing, that humanity is stronger, united. When we come together for a common cause, with common energy, that we develop a common strength. And we begin to manifest things. You see, again, the difference between a weak nuclear force and a strong nuclear force is that a weak nuclear force gives off a particular energy. It creates a decay, but is not necessarily germane to how matter manifests itself. But the strong nuclear force is what holds the nuclei together, and this energy creates vibration, and this vibration is what yields what we call perceivable reality. So the thing is here to remember is, when you are dealing in strong nuclear force, basically it is the power of human spirits coming together to form a nuclei, and this nuclei creates a spiritual fusion. And this spiritual fusion then renders a spiritual energy. But here's the cool part. The weak nuclear force, the energy that comes from decay, is an energy that eventually runs out. It eventually dies. Fusion, on the other hand, we believe that it can be sustained in perpetuity. In other words, it can be sustained endlessly. Now, here's the interesting thing: is that suns are the most notable example of nuclear fusion that we have. And suns are birthed and suns die. It takes billions of years, right, for a sun to be born, to live, and to die. But that is a pretty long time for our understanding. But we also understand that by principle, that fusion is something that contained and controlled, that it's something that could actually be perpetual. It's literally the holy grail of physics, this perpetual motion machine. In other words, energy comes in, and this energy simply repeats itself ad infinitum. In other words, it just keeps going and going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny of physics. And so when we look at this from a human standpoint, again, when we're taking the spiritual mass of humanity and pulling it together in a strong nuclear force, that this strong nuclear force will ultimately yield a type of fusion. And when this fusion happens, it releases an energy that will outlast us all. In other words, our physical being, not the spiritual being. But I also believe that if we were to successfully have, see, this is funny because nuclear fusion is like the holy grail of physics. It's been achieved in small amounts and for short durations. But the holy grail of it is to get a fusion reactor that gets going and keeps going. And once this critical mass is achieved and the proper controls are in place, that this could be an energy source that is as long lasting as the sun, that it is as ubiquitous as wind or water power. And so it's really, really powerful. But when you take this and apply it to humanity, we get an energy source that I believe would cause the spiritual and the natural to come together. That is really powerful. But it takes something to make that happen. Now, what that something is, I don't know. If I knew that, I think I'd be a wealthy man because I'd be able to figure this out. And the secret to world peace and ending famine and poverty and all these things, I believe it's in this strong nuclear field or strong nuclear force of humanity. Because I believe that when we have a strong enough nuclear force of humanity, it will create a disruption in the field that basically this is what I think happens is that eventually that all matter returns to its source. All energy returns to its source. So if that's the case, if we create this fusion reaction and a chain reaction that's sustainable, I believe that the field itself, which all things exist in, and the things within the field that are produced by an excitement or a disruption in the field, that they all become one. And that's, man, I can't tell you how mind blowing that is. But here's the problem: is that humanity right now in its current state is driven by this weak nuclear force. And so yes, there is an energy that's given off, but it's an energy that comes from decay. And eventually the half-life or the how long this thing is radioactive, that will give out. And this particle will cease to be energy producing. And so I believe that the weak nuclear force of humanity is unsustainable. But I also believe that there is more profit in the treatment than in the cure. See, the thing is that as long as the weak nuclear force persists, that there are always going to be things that basically treat that problem. They will control the rate of decay, or they will control the potential damage of the decay, but they will never stop the decay itself because there is profit in the decay. Somebody is benefiting from that negative energy. The energy that comes from keeping people in poverty, from keeping people hungry, from people keeping people racially divided or religiously divided or whatever the division is, that decay, there's profit in that. And there are people that have figured out how to profit from that. But the thing is that the weak nuclear force is a zero-sum game. It is a race to zero. And eventually it runs out. So the people who have access to it, who understand it, they're able to profit from it as long as they can keep it going. And so what they do is they use this to keep certain people in power and other people unempowered. But when we come together and we make a strong nuclear bond, and we're operating according to a strong nuclear force, that the spirits of humanity come together, that we produce this energy. And again, the, what we want to do is we want to get this to the point where it becomes a self-sustaining entity. But it can only become a self-sustaining entity once the decay has ceased. So what has to happen is that the same particles that may be involved in radioactive decay in concerning humanity, I'm talking about people now, that the same energy, same particles that create this decay and create this negative energy, that these same particles can be reproportioned to become to be part of the strong nuclear force. You see how that works? Because a lot of times this is how where religion fails, because religion wants to exclude parts, what they don't think is worthy, what they don't think will produce energy, what they don't think is productive, and they exclude those parts. And so that creates decay because it's throwing off potential energy that could be melded into the strong nuclear force and the joining of humanity that will produce this perpetual energy. You see what I'm saying? Man, when this is the key point. If there's nothing else that you take away from this, it's this: that every time two people choose to operate in unity. Now, understand this, that agreement is not necessary for unity. And the atomic structure itself proves that, because you have protons which are neutral, or no, protons are positive, and neutrons which are neutral. They have no energy of themselves, and electrons which are negative. So you have three different forces that are operating within the sphere of the atom. And then within the nucleus of the atom, you have either the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force, and you have quarks that make up the protons and the neutrons, and they're subject to switch. But if you can stop the switching long enough to let the strong nuclear force take hold, again, matter as we perceive it, air, water, microphone booms, computer screens, all of these things are the result of something manifested by a strong nuclear force. Energy, positive energy, useful energy, energy that's sustainable, and energy that binds everything together. It is not relying on all of these particles being in agreement. They're, they are united, but not necessarily in agreement. And that's the thing, that we have to come to the conclusion that there are some. Listen, you could take a person who likes grunge music and someone who likes country, and they probably don't agree on anything, even, I mean, beyond the music, right? But they both may be from Dothan, Alabama, and because they're both from Dothan, Alabama, they agree on some certain things that Dothan, Alabama is all about. Do you follow what I'm saying? They may completely disagree on politics, religion, culture, all of these things. But at the end of the day, they're going to say, man, I'm from Dothan. You from Dothan? Yeah, homie, what's up? And so everybody they have this uniting bond in spite of their lack of agreement. And this is really, really powerful, because if we can get to the point where we're no longer driven by agreement, but instead we say we're going to unite ourselves around the betterment of humanity. And this is why politics is such a Politics is just such a motherfucker, and because it divides people. And so what happens is that politics depends upon people changing their state on a regular basis. So it is basically depending upon radioactive human decay in order to survive. And religion is the same way. Religion is dependent upon people flip flopping. That's why, evangelicals, they go out and they want to convert, win souls, right? And they know that some people, they're going to win some souls, and so they're going to lose some souls. So these people are constantly in a flux. They're flipping and flipping and flipping, and so there's this decay that's the result of religion, and religion keeps humanity divided, and this division creates this decay. And here's the thing, folks, is that the decay is not sustainable. Decay is the result of dying and death. But strong nuclear bond produces energy. You could see it in light. You could feel it in heat. And you know that it's doing something by how it influences whatever is around it. That's why there's this cosmic awakening of humanity that is going on right now, where people are dropping all of their religious labels and all of their religious beliefs. And what they're doing is they're looking at humanity, and they're saying there's a greater power, and that there's a greater common denominator. And so people are coming together and discovering this love thing, and in discovering this love thing, and seeing love as this force that binds us all together. And then we find out that love is not only the force that binds us all together, but love is the medium in which we all exist. That's why the Bible says that in him we live and move and have our being. And who is him? The universe. It is love. That's what we live, move, and have our being in. So when we realize this, we come together in love, the strong nuclear force begins to happen, and you begin to get energy that comes from that. Listen, this is why religion and politics are scared as fuck right now. They are totally running for cover right now, or they're trying to figure out how can they undo this, because they realize that if this happens, just like if we have nuclear fusion, if nuclear fusion happens, there will never be a need for another electric bill, because power will be available ubiquitously and freely. Likewise, if the human condition, the human soul, the human spirit begins to join with other human souls and spirits, that what's going to happen is this critical mass will occur. And what I believe, and again, this is what I believe, your mileage may vary. What I believe is that when this happens and critical mass is achieved, that the distinction between the physical and the spiritual will disappear. That all of this energy becomes one. And again, just like how electric companies don't necessarily want nuclear fusion, because it would eliminate the need for power generation and all of the things that cause power to be a commodity that can be monetized. The same thing, what happens is that when all of humanity comes together, what happens? All of humanity begins to see itself as one, and no one goes hungry. No one is divided. There's no more racism. There's no more classism. There's no more religious differences. There are no more cultural differences. All of humanity begins to operate as one. And that's why listen, I look at quantum physics and quantum mechanics now. I look at this in a whole new light because I really believe that spirituality, true spirituality, can be quantified in the quantum realm. It can be observed, it can be measured. Now, again, what we're looking at is that you don't really know whether or not a thing will be there or not. You just know the likelihood of it, right? And that's the other beauty of the quantum is that there's always the realm of the mysterious. Sometimes things are not exactly as they seem, and it's okay. See, that's the thing, man. Certainty is the certainty is the killer of imagination. That once we become certain about something, it what's the point? I mean, why even bother? But as long as there is uncertainty, there's always the potential for excitement. And where there's potential for excitement, that means the field can be disrupted and particles can appear. Waves can happen. And humanity advances. And that, my friends, is what I have for you today. This one was, if this didn't bless you, it certainly blessed me. I'm telling you, all of humanity is crying out for unity. The strong nuclear force of the spiritual realm is calling us all together. And when we understand this and we begin to put our labels, our divisions, our differences aside, and when we see that the greater good of humanity is more important than our little individual fiefdoms, I believe that the distinction between the spiritual and the natural and the quantum and the real will go away. And that's what I have for you today. And I hope that you find that encouraging. I look forward to hearing from you. You can reach me at www.derrickday.com. Click on the link, mark contact, and you can fill out a form and send me an email. Be sure to check out the Heretic Happy Hour. We dropped a new episode today, and it is a solo sort of project between myself and Katie Valentine, which was absolutely awesome. You gotta check that out. And of course, you can check out the Forward podcast, which you can get both of those podcasts on iTunes and everywhere you get podcasts. And of course, check out my blog on patheos.com. And if you're so inclined, this video will be on YouTube. Go to YouTube, check it out, like, subscribe. Hey, listen, I want to grow this thing out and just touch as many lives as I can with this understanding of quantum spirituality. So until next time, love y'all. Namaste. Talk to you later.